Hello, welcome back to Algebra 1. We're going to conquer the topic of the slope of a line. Now, we've been talking about lines for quite a bit in algebra, and now we're finally going to put a number to what we call the slope. Now, before we do any math and we actually do any calculations, I want to just kind of go over here and illustrate a few things with my pen. Let me ask you a question. Let's say this were the line that I were talking to you about, this line right here. Would you consider this line to have a steep slope or not a steep slope or shallow slope, right? This line here, you got to think of a mountain, right? A steep mountain looks like this, goes up and down really, really high. So this would be what we would call high steepness or high slope or a large slope. Whereas this line right here would have a very gentle slope or a low slope. So as we go through the calculations, keep in mind what we're doing. We're just trying to put a number that represents the steepness of the line that we have. So lines that are very shallow like this are going to have a low slope or a small slope, whereas lines that are really, really steep like this, like a really tall mountain, are going to have a higher slope. So keep that in mind. Now as we go and do the calculations, you'll have an idea of what to look out for. So what we want to do is plot a line on this graph here. And I'm going to plot a couple of points here, 2 comma positive 1. So that's a 2 comma positive 1. So I'm just going to put a dot right here at x is equal to 2, y is equal to positive 1, and I'll kind of illustrate that by just drawing right on here. This is the point 2 comma 1, and then I'm also going to put the point 4 comma 2, so I have to go to 4 for x and 2 for y, like this. So I'm going to put a point 4 comma 2 right there. I'll put a dot right there, and I'll kind of put something in here to tell you that this is 4 comma 2. So these are the 2 points. So you have point 1 is 2 comma 1. Whoops, let me go back and fix that. It's going to be 2 comma 1, and point 2 is 4 comma 2. And through those 2 points, we've been doing this a lot, we can draw a line. So let's go ahead and draw that line right there. I'm just going to put my straight edge here and do my best to draw a relatively straight line through those points. Not perfect, but it works for our discussion here. All right, so let me ask you a question. Based on our discussion, would you expect this line to have a very high slope or a low slope? Well, as we said before, this is a really high slope, and this is a really low slope. So this line is kind of on the low slope side. It's not super shallow, but it's definitely not steep. Okay, so that's kind of keep that in mind. Now, mathematically, we have to come up with some way to measure slope. So we're going to write an equation to govern that. So the equation for a slope is as follows. Slope is, in algebra, we use the variable m to denote the slope. I guess it would make a little more sense to use the variable s, but for historical reasons, we always use the letter m for slope. You're just going to have to get used to it. I know it's a little bit weird, but m means slope or steepness of the line. And when we define slope, it's going to be the rise of the line divided by the run of the line. Now let me illustrate what that means on the board here. This line obviously is going up and to the right. So it's traveling this direction. Well, it's also going this direction too, but let's just talk about this direction like this. So this line is going up in this direction, right? And it's also going over to the right in this direction. So the slope is the ratio of how much the line is rising, how fast it's going up compared to how fast it's going over. It's kind of like a mountain. If you think of this being like a mountain right here. We say a mountain is steep if it has a whole lot of rise in a very short amount of horizontal